niece, and many family members live in that building. My question to the alderman is, why we didn't get the invitation from the past community meeting? And I see that we have here 26 participants, including the presenter, your staff, and I had to see who are the residents from the 31st ward. I would like to see more transparency on inviting community members, people who will be affected for any change that is happening in the 31st ward, but especially the ones that will live very close to the fields. And for the records, I'm an owner since 1996. As an owner of the property. So, mi nombre es Leticia Barrera y yo soy dueña del lugar 4041 West de la Parker, donde mi hijo vive con su pareja, mi nieto, mi sobrina y muchos familiares en ese edificio. Y mi pregunta es para el alderman, ¿por qué no recibimos la invitación para ser parte de esta reunión y de la reunión antepasada? Cuando yo escucho la palabra reunión de comunidad, yo me imagino personas que viven en la comunidad. Yo puedo ver aquí que tenemos 26 participantes, incluyendo el presentador, la traductora, el alderman y algunas personas que trabajan con eso. Realmente mi pregunta es, ¿cuántos del vecindario están aquí presentes?
Well, thank you for the question. The letter was mailed by the attorney, and he was going with 250 feet radius of the property. Where you live is not 250 feet, and the ones that really get directly impacted are the people who live on George and right behind the fields. So the attorney is basically the one who sends the notices. So we're following the rules, we're following the law with the zoning requirements. And we did mail and we did flyer in the 250 feet. I don't know why people didn't show up this time. Last one we had a good amount of people. I really don't know, but it's something that because it's kind of different now because how it is with COVID. The first time we had this, we had great representation in the neighborhood from the people within the 250 feet. But I'm very transparent, I'm very open, and I really don't have any control of why you didn't get it. Reason why is because probably you're not within the 250 feet, you're out of the 250 feet.
El concejal Cardona dice que quizá la razón por la que no recibieron una carta por correo es porque no viven a 250 pies de la propiedad de The Fields. Usualmente el abogado mandó estas cartas por correo y solamente las recibieron las personas o los vecinos que viven a 250 pies de la propiedad de The Fields. También agrega que siempre ha sido y ha mantenido transparencia con los residentes de esta área y que no entiende porque la última vez que tuvimos la reunión a finales de mayo tuvimos a más participantes que los tenemos esta tarde.
There are other questions or comments for us?
Hello? Yes, sorry. It was hard to unmute. I don't know if you guys can hear me. My name is Melanie Hidalgo, and I'm a resident of 4041 West Parker. I wasn't notified, and like it was mentioned, I guess we are not part of that zone. But living here, we have been impacted by parking. There is no parking, especially we see people from the fields coming onto this side, parking on our side, on our street, even on the side where it's not in front of my house. And that is something that I want to ask the alderman, why haven't you found a solution for that? We already have the Ross right in front of us, and we understand that's a loading dock, but we already have the issue of that side being limited on parking, and then also on Carlo, if I'm not mistaken, that one's taken, but overnight it's packed by parking people that are parking from the fields. And personally, I have seen them park and walk across. We have 7 residents on this side, and I do not believe that 7 houses can take up a whole street and also another street, which is the Carlo. So again, my question to the alderman is, why can we also find a resolution for the parking and just adding more to the fields, and that will be, I feel like, more impactful on the parking on this side, just leaving us with no parking at all, that residents that live here. I have a baby that is 9 months old. I was pregnant during the time. It's been cold. I have been having to park all the way by literally almost the corner, or even sometimes I have had it to leave on other streets because there's literally no parking. I understand that sometimes snow takes over, but when it's in the summer, I don't have any parking here, and I have to walk at night sometimes by myself to come home, and I want a solution for this.
Se llama Melanie Hidalgo y la pregunta es directamente para el concejal Félix Cardona. Dice que ha tenido problemas con el estacionamiento, que aparentemente hay varios residentes de The Fields que se están estacionando y tomando el estacionamiento directamente en su bloque. También agrega que vive en el área cerca de 250 pies y que no recibió notificación acerca de esta junta.
Well, let me start off that parking is an issue. People that go to the fields, they have parking lots. Zane, how many parking lot spaces you have there that they could park there?
There's about 800 spots inside the building.
800 spots. I seriously doubt they go park by your street and go across and go to the fields. And 2, where you're located, there's a candy factory down the street. So I wouldn't be surprised if the factory workers or the workers do park on your side and walk to the factory. So, you know, I really hard to believe that you have people that park there and go straight to the fields when where you live on Parker, it's almost like residential industrial, and you're surrounded by industrial facilities that people work and so forth. So I'm really kind of I'm kind of leery that they come and park there and go to the fields when fields have 800 parking spots. And on top of that, in front of your house, you have Ross, you have Petco, and so forth. They have parking spaces. I cannot control the human nature factor or how people park and how people drive, but there is plenty of parking in the parking lots where Ross and Petco are, and in the fields. So on that note, I'm very leery that the people from the fields park on your street and then have to walk all the way to the fields to work when there's 800 parking spots.
El concejal Cardona agrega que se le hace un poco difícil entender que los residentes de The Fields se estén estacionando en esa cuadra específicamente, ya que hay más de 800 estacionamientos disponibles dentro de The Fields para que los residentes puedan estacionarse dentro del edificio donde viven. También agrega que el área donde vives en tu cuadra es una área, un bloque residencial y industrial, donde hay una compañía donde quizá los trabajadores de esa misma compañía se estén estacionando en esos estacionamientos. Y agrega también que aparte de eso tienen tiendas como la tienda Ross, están otros centros, bueno, es un centro comercial pequeño donde hay bastantes tiendas, pero él no puede controlar lo que el público decida hacer cuando es una calle literalmente para el público.
So
Yes,
just as a reminder, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just to bring that up, I do understand we do have the candy factory here at the corner, but since COVID, there hasn't been workers at night, so that the parking should be open. The fields is literally less than a block from the parking that they're taking up to, And I have personally seen, like I said, the people. I would not be lying if that is inferred from aldermen. If anything, I could take those pictures and personally take them to the alderman, or even film the people getting out of their car after parking on Carlo and on Parker and walking straight to the fields, other than they're going to Cermak at 11 p.m., which I doubt it because they're closed, and Ross and all these other stores around me are closed. So that is just something that before I bring up a question or anything, I wanted to make sure, are they living there? Another question I did have was, does the field charge for parking? Because I know the street parking here around me is all free, is all to the public, but is also should be residential to the people that live here on this street. And does the fields charge for parking for the residents there? Because if so, then I would understand why the problem. Because if I'm already paying overly priced to live in a studio, I wouldn't want to pay for parking.
Melanie agrega que ella ha visto a los residentes caminar luego de estacionar su coche y entrar al edificio de The Fields. También agrega que lo hacen en horas de la noche y es imposible que estos trabajadores de esta fábrica de dulces sean los que se están estacionando ahí, ya que después del coronavirus la fábrica no está abierta en horas de la noche, las tiendas están cerradas, la tienda Cermak está cerrada, Ross está cerrada, y ahora tienen la pregunta de que si estos residentes están pagando por estacionamiento, pues entonces ese sería el problema, porque quieren estacionarse de gratis en la calle, porque en esta zona no tienes que pagar a cambio de tener que pagar por un estudio donde te están cobrando X cantidad que quizás es mucho y no quieren pagar también el estacionamiento aparte.
So the residential tenants do pay for parking at the fields. The commercial tenants are given parking as part of their lease, so they don't discreetly pay for parking. But as far as I know, most of the occupants of the fields have normal business hours. Some of the industrial properties in the back have 24/7 operation, but the stores aren't. The stores and offices aren't open past normal working hours.
Stein Coita dice que los residentes, el inquilino residencial sí tiene que pagar por estacionarse dentro del estacionamiento y el inquilino comercial no está pagando por estacionarse dentro del estacionamiento.
Parking is an issue all over the city, and the law states as long as you had a city sticker and Illinois plate, you can park anywhere. And if that was an issue, if someone from my office have we received calls of parking issues around in that block? Because someone from my office who deals with constituents complaints get calls.
This is Angel Vega. I deal with all the parking issues from the ward, and I've not received any from that area. There is a department with the city of Chicago that deploys parking enforcement agents on nights and weekends, and anytime I get a request, I submit an email. They go out there and they take it. If they don't have any residential stickers, if they don't have any city stickers, or if it's commercial vehicles on a residential street.
Para rectificar lo que está diciendo Félix Cardona y su oficina, es que de acuerdo a la ley de la ciudad de Chicago, con tal de que un residente de la ciudad de Chicago tenga sus permisos, tenga el city sticker en su coche y el sticker de su licencia, esta persona puede estacionarse en un lugar público donde esta persona prefiere.
So just as a quick note for everyone, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a button that says reactions. If you click on that, there's a raise hand button. That's the best way for us to see you and know that you have a question to ask. So if you could please do that, I think that would help us kind of facilitate this conversation.
Queremos rectificar si usted gusta hablar o decir algo durante esta junta virtual. Por favor, en la parte de abajo pueden hacer clic en la parte inferior de la pantalla y luego pueden hacer clic en donde dice Raise Hand para que tengamos un poquito más de, no sé, que vaya toda la junta más en orden.
I see Zeke Torres is raising his hand. Benny, can you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Zeke Torres. I live on the 4100 block of Oakdale. Me llamo Ezequiel Torres y vivo en la cuadra 4100 de la Oakdale. I'm also one of the moderators or admins of the Belmont Gardens North Hermosa Facebook group. I've been to a number of zoning meetings for the ward. So, you know, sometimes I don't even remember which ones they are. I don't recall this one, but that doesn't mean that notice wasn't sent because my participation in the zoning process came later in the fall of 2020. Quiero aclarar que yo he participado en varias juntas relacionadas sobre zoning. Yo soy uno de los que usa el Facebook y organizo o administro un grupo que se llama Belmont Gardens North Hermosa. Y eso ha dado de que me incluyen en varias de las juntas relacionadas sobre zoning, pero de este tema no me recuerdo porque yo he empezado a participar después del otoño del 2020. One of the questions that I have is, today you're presenting this to the project owners or the project managers, and it seems like you're cooperative. What is the process if we start to see issues where we can raise them to you, and who do we communicate those to? Even if it's not this alderman or the next alderman or the next something, 6 months into this project, if something we notice is wrong, what's your commitment to address those? What's the process to address those? And what's your cooperation then? After we approve this or we don't approve this and it's done, what's the point? What's the process to help us work together? Because today you need us, so you're coming to us very positively, and I like that. That's okay. But what do we do in 6 months? So let me translate that real quick while you get that together. Estoy de acuerdo que ahora vienen por nosotros para pedir permiso y están colaborando de esa idea y de esa intención. Yo lo que busco es saber cómo vamos a desarrollar este proyecto a los 6 meses cuando se empiezan a salir problemas y que tenemos que llamar a alguien. No importa cuál sea el alderman o quién sea el elegido, cuál es el proceso y a quién vamos a llamar para empezar a desarrollar soluciones, para empezar a colaborar con los problemas y ver cómo a llegar a soluciones juntos, mutuos. Es la pregunta que le estoy dando a los del proyecto.
So, like every other business that operates in the city, you know, it's a constant interplay between the residents that surround you and the businesses that run there. You know, Chicago is not a place without very much regulation. There's a city department, I think, for just about everything. So, you know, keeping the operations in line with city codes is going to be of paramount importance, not only for us as the property owner, but for all the production companies that are there. And they're the ones that are responsible for all the hiring. So they're the ones that need to manage the city codes and be in compliance with those rules and regulations. And I presume that if they're in violation of that, the first stop is going to be the alderman, and the second stop is going to be whatever applicable department you know, relates to the rules that they're violating.
Dice que es una interacción constante con los residentes y las empresas que rodean el edificio de 4100 West Jersey. También dice que si hay algún problema o si algo llega a suceder, primero que todo vamos a ir directamente al concejal, las oficinas del concejal Félix Cardona, y segundo con cualquier departamento que esté encargado de ese problema.
And in addition, you know, this property is a big one in the neighborhood. You know, a lot of the hiring is going to happen in the neighborhood, I presume. So there's going to be a constant relationship between not only the building and the community around it, but the companies that work there. So I think that, you know, there's going to be a line of communication as we get the studio operation set up, where you can talk to the management of the studios, and really any part of the fields if problems arise.
Dice también Zane que si llegan a suceder problemas, pueden hablar directamente con el gerente encargado del edificio y pues él entiende porque este edificio es uno de los más grandes en el vecindario, que quizás sí haya problemas, pero ustedes pueden ir directamente con el gerente del edificio en este momento.
Are there other questions?
Yes.
We're running
yes.
short on time
Yeah.
here, but
Yeah. I have a question. So, comment on the question. So, Alma Cardona, you mentioned that the attorney just sent a letter to specific residents, right, with the 250 feet, right, around. I think that, I mean, good to know, but this big project is going to affect everyone living around that, not only them. So I disagree with that, and I would like, if you can push to invite more community members, will be awesome. Lo que estoy diciendo un comentario es de que, y entiendo que el abogado mandó a gente que solamente vive 250 pies de ahí, pero la realidad es que esto va a afectar a varios, no nada más a los que viven a 250 pies, ¿verdad? Eso es mentira. Yo quiero pedirle a la Alderman que continúe trabajando con la comunidad y si es posible, si él tiene el poder de decir, vamos a invitar a más personas que va a afectar. Eso le agradecería. So, the presenter mentioned that about like 400 jobs, and then he mentioned 500, another 500 jobs. So you're talking about like beautifully like bringing jobs to the community. What is the criteria and what is the process for this? How we are going to assure that those jobs, people who live, not only the ones who live 250 feet, the ones that are living in the community are taking the opportunity for that. So let's be honest on like and talk about this process. Lo que estoy diciendo es de que el presentador mencionó 400 trabajos de un banco que realmente ni es comunitario, 500 trabajos más de otros 500 trabajos más, estamos hablando muy como 900 trabajos y eso se oye muy bonito, pero realmente hay alguna criteria de cómo para generar esos trabajos que realmente se va a beneficiar nuestra gente de la comunidad y si hay algún proceso, me gustaría saber.
So thank you for the question. It's a good question. I think that these jobs are controlled by the city unions that run sound stages. And in order to work for IATSE, which is the union that does that, you have to go through training, and then you'll qualify for union jobs. Part of the point of this community meeting is that you guys are among the first to hear about this in explicit detail. You're the closest to the property. And if there's people that want to enter training programs, which will, us in the studio eventually will support, then, I think that that's the first step. And then the second step is, being employed by the production companies that ultimately do the hiring. On our side, we are simply the landlord. We don't hire people to run a studio. That's not our business. Our business is owning real estate and developing real estate. It's not operating what happens on the inside of those buildings. And that's really up to the production company. So this is a very well understood process of joining a union and training to join that union. And then once that happens, I presume that there's going to be jobs available here and elsewhere in the city for other studio spaces.
Lo que dice el presentador Saint Covita es que él simplemente es el propietario de Nick Point Ventures. Lo que significa es que él no te puede decir si él te va a dar el trabajo directamente. Eso está basado en las compañías que van a estar como inquilinos aquí dentro del edificio. Una de ellas sería el banco, la otra sería el cinematográfico, la compañía de cine. Entonces también dice que esos trabajos están controlados por forma de un sindicato donde esas personas van a necesitar un tipo de training. Si piden el trabajo, obviamente ustedes son los primeros que se han enterado de esta información un poco más a fondo. La información sí fue compartida hace unos días, pero en esta junta informativa es donde ellos dieron información más para que ustedes supieran lo que va a pasar aquí dentro del edificio, y si quieren más información se las podemos proveer.
So we have about 10 minutes left in the meeting. We're happy to answer more questions and take whatever other comments are available.
Tenemos aproximadamente 10 minutos que nos quedan para esta junta informativa. Si usted gusta, puede hacer su pregunta y la pueden hacer ahora.
Yes, Christian Diaz.
Hello. Thank you so much for hosting this meeting today. So my understanding is that the Plan Commission note agenda says there's going to be a demolition and a construction of a new 5-foot building on the northwest corner. And I'd just like to get more clarity on that. We'd like to know when the demolition is going to happen, and we'd like to know more about if you've thought about how a demolition could potentially impact children and families and seniors when we're in the middle of a pandemic. Something else I want to point you to is that Logan Square Neighborhood Association, in partnership with 44 community organizations, worked on a quality of life plan for Hermosa and Logan Square West. And we identified some economic development strategies that I think you have a unique opportunity to help advance, which are to support small businesses, particularly those owned by local residents, immigrants, and people of color, to help local job seekers find employment in the area and meet the trading needs, and create a pipeline for local workers to large economic growing sectors. So I think there's a big opportunity for this. I think a lot of people are excited about this project, but there's also a lot of concern around transparency. You say this is one of multiple meetings that you've had where you share this information, but then you also say we're the first to hear about it. So I'm just wondering why that inconsistency. And finally, has there been any recognition of the incredible displacement pressures that people of color in this community are facing? Since 2000, Logan Square has lost more Hispanic residents than any other community area in the city. 87% of Hermosa residents are Latinx. Avondale is also experiencing extreme levels of displacement. And ultimately, these are things that are very harmful to children and families that we're concerned about. So we think there's potential here if you could agree to have a meeting with some more local concerned residents and possibly discuss some of the community benefits that could be guaranteed. And if that were to happen, then I think more residents would be excited to express support. But as it stands now, I think many people are going to oppose this and resist this and testify in opposition at the Plan Commission and submit letters to the Plan Commission. So I just want to say there's an opportunity here for us to collaborate, because I think we all share the same goals, and I just really hope you can open that door to the residents who are at risk of being displaced and harmed by this development.
Cristian Díaz dice que está de acuerdo con lo que está sucediendo con el edificio y los planes que tienen de su zonificación y todos los cambios, pero dice que lo que le trae más confusión y quiere respuestas es el plan de demolición, porque necesita más claridad, quiere saber cuándo lo piensan hacer, cuándo está supuesto a empezar y por qué lo van a hacer durante tiempos de pandemia, cuando esto puede afectar la salud de los niños, la salud de las personas más vulnerables al coronavirus. También dice que necesitan más transparencia, que siente que personalmente los residentes no están muy informados acerca de todo lo que está pasando con estos cambios que vienen para la calle Diversity y el edificio 4100, y también dice que le gustaría que los residentes tuvieran algo que decir acerca de todo esto, si ustedes están de acuerdo en tener otra junta para que los residentes puedan expresar sus sentimientos y quizá ellos estén todos más de acuerdo acerca de este plan que ustedes piensan tener.
Thank you, Christian. Appreciate the questions. I have 3 questions that I wrote down. Let me start with the first one. The demolition date, we haven't set that yet. As I stated, there's still a zoning process ahead of us that's going to take a little while. And then beyond that, we have to draw the buildings and we have to get all the permits and go through all the city processes to effectuate that. So we don't have an estimated date right now. But we'll continue to be in discussions and keep the dialogue open between us, the aldermen, and the community at large about the timing of that as that comes into greater focus.
Okay. Va a contestar la primera pregunta. Te dice que acerca de la demolición no hay una fecha establecida en este momento. Esto toma un poco de tiempo. Tienen que dibujar el edificio, obtener todos los permisos que necesitan, pero que él piensa tener transparencia con todos los residentes acerca de todo lo que va a estar sucediendo y cuándo va a suceder.
The second question was regarding the number of meetings. The number, as I said, and what we show in the presentation, we've been, trying to do this plan development amendment really since even before the alderman took office. So this has been a long time coming. We've spoken to his predecessor about other things, and we spent a lot of time with the alderman, including the zoning advisory committee, meeting with every group, on the zoning advisory committee individually to talk about the changes that we were making to the plan development. As I said, film was never part of that because it's an existing use, so that is not a change. The only changes were related to adding more retail and creating consistency across the entire complex. And so the difference that you're hearing between the number of meetings and hearing about film for the first time is in fact true. We have had a number of meetings, but this is the first time that film has become a relevant portion of the conversation, but it's always been a permitted use and something that we could have pursued without any changes to the plan development, except for minor ones related to design of some of the buildings.
Shane explica acerca de tu segunda pregunta que sí han tenido varias reuniones desde antes de que el concejal asumiera su cargo. También dice que lo del cine no fue algo que inicialmente estaban platicando, y también dice que lo del cine es algo nuevo, pero que sí califica con toda la zonificación del edificio.
Also, let me chime in here. If they would get the zoning changes only for the development, 2nd and 6th floor along Diversity Avenue for the building. So when we first had the meeting, there was discussion with the community meeting and everybody was on board. We got approval from the community at that point. Second meeting that we're having today is because unfortunately, not unfortunately, but we're having this conversation of there might be a potential use of space in the private lot in the back that could be used for film studio. And let me be clear, the zoning is only for the building itself, not for the filming studio. And he could do the filming studio without zone change. And then if he does get the permit and all that, we're going to be out of this pandemic by the time they start building and they start construction and stuff like that. You're talking probably in 2022 and 2023, probably starting the the build out and so forth. And we're out of the pandemic, and the demolition is going to be controlled because you have to hire a unionized demolition company to do it, and it's going to be done the right way. You're not going to displace people just because this is going there. They're going to stay the same, you know. And people are saying it's going to bring some kind, and it's not, because I would never do that to the community. And Christian and everybody knows I would never do anything to displace people from their community. So on that note, you know, we're going to work closely, Zane and I, and with the residents around there to protect the integrity of the neighborhood.
Félix Cardona dice que van a trabajar junto con el propietario Zane Poita para proteger a los residentes de este vecindario, que su intención no es sacar a nadie. También agrega que la zonificación es solo para el edificio y no para el estudio de cine, porque ese no necesita un plan de zonificación, ese ya está aprobado. También agrega que la demolición no empezará como hasta sería el año 2022, quizá en el año 2023, y para entonces puede ser que la pandemia y todo lo del coronavirus ya no exista.
Okay, thank you. We've gone a bit over our 1 hour kind of timeline here. I'm glad we could have this discussion. You know, the information to contact us is on the screen right now. You know, we're happy to kind of respond to any outreach that we receive from you guys. And you know, we'll be in constant communication with the aldermen and various community groups as we kind of move forward on this project.
Les queremos agradecer por todo su tiempo esta tarde. Recuerden que si tienen preguntas y no las hicieron aquí durante esta junta informativa, pueden mandarlas directamente al correo electrónico que está en su pantalla. También recuerden que nosotros vamos a estar en contacto directamente con las oficinas del concejal Félix Cardona para mantener toda la transparencia posible para que los residentes se sientan a gusto con este proyecto.
Thank you, everyone, and for making time tonight. We look forward to meeting you all in person soon.
Gracias a todos por acompañarnos y ojalá nos podamos ver un día en persona pronto.
Thank you.